Governor Gavin Newsom is one of California's most powerful politicians. But last night, Vice President Kamala Harris spoke in support of him at the state Democratic Party's virtual convention.
Gavin and I go back to being elected at the same time in San Francisco many, many years ago. And I'll tell you, I've seen firsthand what a leader he is and how he really does put his heart into his work on behalf of the people of California. And President Joe Biden and I support him 100%.
He might not need such vocal support except for an election to end his term early. This week, the push to recall Governor Newsom became official. State officials confirmed that organizers had collected 1.6 million valid signatures. Gavin Newsom has been under fire for his handling of the pandemic, but that's not why the recall started. In fact, the recall petition says nothing about COVID-19. And signature collection began in February of 2020, before the lockdowns began. So how did we get here? And where is this going? Joining us now is John Myers, the Sacramento Bureau Chief for the Los Angeles Times. John, good evening. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Joshua. You too.
Where is Gavin Newsom's head on this right now? If I was him and I had spent as many years being mayor of San Francisco, Jerry Brown's lieutenant governor, kind of waiting in the wings for all this time to be governor, finally became governor, and I thought there was a legitimate chance I couldn't finish my term, I'd be spitting mad, be like, oh, hell no, I'm not letting this ride. But I haven't heard much from him. Does that mean he's not terribly worried about this?
I think it's a calculation, Joshua. I think he wants to acknowledge it's real, and he has started to do that a little bit without giving it a lot of fuel. You know, let's set the stage for people who may not be familiar with how recall elections work. Not every state would have this procedure. There have been dozens and dozens of these through California history, but only one of them has ever gotten on the ballot. That was in 2003 when Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor of California. And so this is the second one only. You said it right. They got it on the ballot during the COVID era. They talked about things that weren't about COVID, but it moved toward a conversation about COVID. And the governor is engaging now, ever so slightly. The Democratic Party, Vice President Harris and others did it over the weekend. And now it's a race to see how you frame this for Californians before an election, which we think will be at the end of the year.
What is the handicapping looking like right now in terms of whether Californians want Gavin Newsom recalled? With, of course, the understanding that his term ends next year, and if they don't like him now, they could always vote him out in 2022.
The polling so far suggests that people are inclined to let him stay in office and that they're not supportive of this recall. We haven't seen a new poll in a while. We'll see some soon, we hope. You needed 1.6 million signatures. You said that at the top of this conversation, but there are 21 million registered voters in California. That's a fraction, in other words, of the California electorate. This is a plurality Democratic state. Democrats dominate California politics. And so it may have been Republicans that led this recall effort, but you've got to persuade more people than that to get Newsom removed from office. Will he stand election on a recall election? Absolutely. Will it succeed? At this point, the voters don't seem inclined to do that.
What about the partisan aspect of this? I mean, as you said, California is a very strongly democratically run state. But there is still lawmaking that goes on in a somewhat bipartisan way. I mean, that bill to fund getting California's public schools back open passed with extremely strong support from both parties. Maybe the Republicans just kind of knew, like, this is going to happen, so we better get on board and shape it as best we can. But how much of this is just raw, pure politics as opposed to some substantive complaints about Governor Newsom that maybe he should answer for?
I think that some of this it's both things. I think it's raw politics. I mean, these are Republican groups and Republican activists who got this recall on the ballot. And it's a reflection of frustrations over the pandemic. I think you had people who signed this who were frustrated with businesses that couldn't open, schools that couldn't open. And you're looking for someone to blame. And the guy in the corner office is the guy you might take for that. But as much as the pandemic is why we are here in California, the pandemic is the question going forward. As vaccinations progress, California has made major strides in getting its citizens vaccinated. As vaccinations progress, as pandemic restrictions ease, the question is, will voters feel as angry about this guy as they did maybe months ago, those who signed it? And again, you need 50 plus one in an election to remove him from office, 50% plus one. And that's going to be a tough order in a state where Democrats dominate and Republicans, I should point this out, Joshua, for people who don't know, Republicans have not won a statewide election in California in 15 years. Democrats have run the table. So you've got your odds set against you here if you're a Republican trying to get Gavin Newsom removed from office early.
Before I let you go, I got to ask you about the possible candidates. Take a look at some of the people who have said that they're going to throw their hats in the ring. The one that has made the most headlines lately is Caitlyn Jenner. You also have Kevin Faulconer, who's former mayor of San Diego. You've got John Cox, a lawyer and businessman who has also run for governor before. Angeline, who was a celebrity who became famous for appearing on a number of provocative billboards years ago. Mary Carey, who's an adult film star. This feels a little different than the Gray Davis recall, where you had Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was like the candidate, and Gray Davis kind of got hurt because his lieutenant governor, Cruz Bustamante, also ran at the last minute, split the vote, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger was able to win. Are there any strong, serious contenders to unseat Gavin Newsom, at least at this point?
Serious is probably a subjective term, or at least viable, but I will tell you this really quickly. In some ways, it is like 2003. There were 135 replacement candidates on that ballot 18 years ago. Gary Coleman, Peter Ueberroth, the former commissioner of Major League Baseball. Arnold Schwarzenegger stood out from that group. There's no one who stands out from that group yet. Caitlyn Jenner, yes, she is a name known around the United States, but she's never had a policy platform like Arnold Schwarzenegger actually had a policy platform before he became governor. So this is going to be tough to see. We've got a few months now before the candidate filing season really begins. Someone would have to crystallize this. I mean, there's an old saying in politics, you can't beat somebody with nobody. And they've got to find someone who seems viable to the California electorate. Right now, I think this is Gavin Newsom's race to lose, but there's a lot of time, and politics can turn any sort of way. And especially now when there are so many different kinds of politics in California that are further complicated by COVID-19, this is not one I think people can just win on name recognition. You're going to have a policy platform. John Myers, the Sacramento Bureau Chief for the LA Times. Good to see you, John. Thanks very much.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.